The bridge of the UNSC Indomitable was burning. Smoke filled the air as sparks flew from damaged control panels. Captain Daewon gripped the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white. Outside the cracked viewscreen, he could see Earth, his home. The blue planet was wrapped in flames as enemy ships bombarded the surface. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, shouted Lieutenant Bora from her station. Blood ran down the side of her face from a cut above her eye, but she kept working. Life support failing in the aft sections. Daewon nodded slowly. He already knew they were dying. The ship groaned around them like a wounded animal. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight against impossible odds. The Vrelith Confederation fleet surrounded them completely, thousands of alien warships against one human vessel. It was never a fair fight. It was never meant to be. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Vrelith flagship," said Communications Officer Young-Soo. His hands shook as he worked his console. He was only 23 years old. Too young to die, Daewon thought. They were all too young. "Put it through," Daewon said. The viewscreen flickered. The image of High Chancellor Velthrin appeared. The alien looked almost human, but his skin was pale blue and his eyes were completely black. He smiled, showing too many teeth. "Captain Daewon," Velthrin said in perfect English, "your planet burns. Your fleet is destroyed. Your species is extinct. Surrender your ship and we will grant you a quick death." Daewon stood up. His uniform was torn and burned in places. He had been fighting this war for 12 years. He was tired, so very tired, but he smiled back at the alien. "You want us to surrender?" Daewon asked. He laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You don't understand humans very well, do you?" Velthrin's smile faded. "You have no choice. There is nowhere to run." "We're not running," Daewon said. He looked around his bridge. At Bora, still working her station despite her injuries. At Young-Soo, scared but brave. At Tactical Officer Ki-Bum, who had lost his entire family when Seoul was destroyed 3 days ago. At all of them. His crew, his family. They looked back at him and he saw no fear in their eyes. Only determination. "Engineering," Daewon called out. "How long until the evacuation shuttles reach minimum safe distance?" 4 minutes, Captain," came the reply from Chief Engineer Hwan. "And our reactor core?" "Overloading as ordered, sir. Once it reaches critical mass, we'll have about 30 seconds before detonation." Daewon turned back to Velthrin. "You want to know what humans do when we have no choice? We make one anyway." He cut the transmission. Alarms began blaring across the ship. Red emergency lights bathed everything in crimson. The Indomitable was dying, but she would die fighting. "All hands," Daewon announced over the ship-wide intercom. "This is the captain. In 3 minutes, our reactor will explode. We're going to take as many of these bastards with us as we can. The evacuation shuttles are clear. Our families are safe. Our mission is complete. It has been my honor to serve with you." He paused. Words felt inadequate for this moment. How do you say goodbye to everyone you care about? How do you tell them that their sacrifice matters when the whole world is ending? "Humanity might fall today," Daewon continued, "but we fall standing. We fall fighting. And we make sure they remember us. Every alien species in this galaxy will know that when you push humans too far, we push back. Hard. Stations. Everyone. Let's show them what humans are made of." The crew moved with purpose. They were going to die, but they would die doing their duty. Bora directed the ship toward the largest cluster of enemy vessels. Ki-Bum armed every weapon they had left. Young-Soo opened all communication channels across every frequency. "Captain, all channels are open," Young-Soo reported. Daewon took a breath. This would be humanity's last message to the galaxy. He had to get it right. "Attention all Vrelith Confederation forces," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "This is Captain Daewon of the UNSC Indomitable, last ship of the human fleet. You came to our system. You burned our worlds. You killed billions of innocent people. You tried to wipe us out because you feared us. Because we wouldn't bow to your confederation. Because we chose freedom over servitude." The ship shuddered. They were taking heavy fire. The reactor was reaching critical levels. He could hear the countdown in his head. 2 minutes, you think you've won," Daewon said. "You think destroying Earth means humanity is finished. But you're wrong. You haven't won anything. You've only made us angry, and wherever humans survive, in whatever dark corners of space they hide, they'll remember this day. They'll remember what you did, and one day they'll come back. We always come back." The Indomitable accelerated toward the enemy fleet. 17 Vrelith capital ships were directly in their path. The aliens fired everything they had, but it didn't matter. Nothing could stop them now. 1 minute, Juan called from engineering. Day-One looked at his crew one last time. They were smiling. Actually smiling. Bora gave him a thumbs up. Kibum saluted. Young-Su nodded. They understood. Death was coming, but they were ready. They were together. For Earth, Day-One said quietly. For Earth, his crew shouted back. The ship plowed into the Vrelith formation. Explosions bloomed around them as they collided with enemy vessels. The view screen went white. The reactor reached critical mass. For a brief moment, the bridge was filled with light brighter than a star. Then everything went silent. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. A miniature supernova that consumed the Indomitable and 17 Vrelith warships in an instant. Millions of tons of metal and machinery were vaporized. 247 human souls went with them. 6 hours later, Earth fell. The remaining Vrelith forces bombarded the planet until nothing moved. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to rubble. Oceans boiled. The atmosphere burned. When they were finished, Earth was a dead rock spinning in space. High Chancellor Velthrin stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the planet die. He felt satisfaction. The human threat was finally eliminated. The galaxy would be safer, more peaceful. The Confederation had won. But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered a warning. It sounded like laughter, cold and mocking. It sounded like Captain Day-One's final words. You haven't won? You've only made us angry. Velthrin pushed the thought away. Humans were extinct. It was over. He was wrong. 50 years had passed since humanity died. The galaxy had moved on. New trade routes were established. Colonies prospered. Peace reigned across Vrelith Confederation space. The war was ancient history now, taught to children as a cautionary tale about dangerous species that refused to join civilized society. Teller 4 had once been a human colony world. Now it was a monument. The Vrelith had taken all the wreckage from destroyed human ships and built a massive structure in the center of what used to be the capital city. Twisted metal and broken hulls were arranged into a towering sculpture that could be seen from orbit. At its base was a plaque written in 12 alien languages. It read, "Here lies humanity, a species that chose war over peace. May they never return." Every year on the anniversary of Earth's fall, the Vrelith held a festival. They called it Victory Day. Millions of aliens traveled to Teller 4 to celebrate. They sang songs. They danced. They told stories about how brave their ancestors were to face the human threat. Parents brought their children to teach them about the war. High Chancellor Velthrin was old now. His blue skin had faded to almost gray. His black eyes were clouded with age. But he still came to every festival. He stood on a stage built around the monument and gave the same speech he gave every year. 50 years ago, Velthrin said to the crowd of thousands, "We faced our greatest challenge. Humanity spread through space like a plague. They were violent, aggressive. They refused to follow Confederation law. They insisted on independence, on freedom. They could not be controlled. So we made the difficult choice, the necessary choice. We ended the threat. We brought peace." The crowd cheered. Fireworks exploded in the sky above. Music played from speakers scattered throughout the city. Aliens danced in the streets celebrating humanity's extinction. Far above the planet, hidden in the shadow of Teller 4's moon, a small ship watched. Inside, Hyuntai sat in darkness. His eyes were fixed on screens showing the festival below. He was 34 years old, but he looked younger. He kept his black hair short. His face showed no emotion as he watched aliens dance on humanity's grave. Hyuntae was born 3 months after Earth fell. His parents had been on an evacuation shuttle, one of the last to escape. They made it to a hidden station on the edge of known space, a place so remote that the Vrelith never found it. 47 other humans were there. That was all that remained of humanity. 48 souls hiding in the dark. They raised their children in secret, taught them everything about Earth, about human history, about the war. Hyuntai grew up knowing he was one of the last humans alive. He learned to hate the Vrelith, to hate what they did. But more than hate, he learned to wait, to plan, to prepare. He was not alone in his ship. Beside him sat Kyung-hee, a woman his age with sharp eyes and steady hands. She was born on the same hidden station. They had grown up together. trained together. And now they watched together as the galaxy celebrated their species' death. "It's almost time," Kyung-hee said quietly. Hyun-tae nodded. He reached for a control panel and activated a communications array. It was old human technology, carefully maintained and hidden over the decades. With a few commands, he accessed systems buried deep beneath the monument on Teller 4. Systems the Vrelith never knew existed. Systems that had been waiting for exactly 50 years. On the planet below, High Chancellor Velthren raised a ceremonial cup filled with alien wine. "To eternal peace," he declared. "To a galaxy free from human aggression. To our victory. To victory," the crowd roared back. Velthren brought the cup to his lips, but before he could drink, a sound cut through the celebration. It started low, a rumbling chuckle that grew louder, deeper. It echoed from every speaker in the city, from the monument itself. A laugh that sounded cold and metallic and utterly human. The crowd fell silent. Music stopped. People looked around in confusion and growing fear. The laughter continued, building to a crescendo before suddenly stopping. Then the monument came to life. Holographic projectors hidden within the wreckage activated. A massive image appeared above the twisted metal. It showed a human man in a torn military uniform. He was standing on what looked like a ship's bridge. Behind him, fires burned and sparks flew from damaged equipment. The man was smiling. "If you're hearing this," the hologram said, "then you've made a fatal mistake." Velthren stared up at the image. His blood ran cold. He recognized that face, that voice. It was impossible. It couldn't be. "I am Captain Day-1 of the UNSC Indomitable," the hologram continued. "And this message was programmed to activate exactly 50 years after humanity's last confirmed transmission. If you're watching this, it means you think we're extinct. It means you're celebrating. Dancing on our graves, congratulations. You killed billions of innocent people. You burned our home. You tried to erase us from history." The hologram's smile grew wider, but there was no warmth in it, only cold fury. "But here's what you didn't understand about humans," Day-1 said. "We don't die when you destroy our bodies. We die when you extinguish our ideas. Our dreams, our hope, and you can't kill those things with bombs and bullets." Panic began spreading through the crowd. Aliens pushed against each other, trying to move away from the monument. Parents grabbed their children. Security forces drew weapons but had nothing to shoot at. The hologram was everywhere, projected into the sky, visible for miles. "Before Earth fell," Day-1 continued, "we launched something called Project Lazarus. Hidden facilities scattered across the galaxy. Places you'd never find. Places that have been working in secret for the last 50 years. Building, growing, preparing. Every single facility was programmed with one simple instruction. If humanity goes extinct, bring us back." Velthren felt his legs go weak. No, it couldn't be true. They had searched for survivors. They had hunted down every human colony. Earth was gone. Humanity was finished. These facilities contained everything we needed to survive, the hologram said. Genetic banks with DNA from millions of humans. Artificial wombs. Flash cloning technology. Educational AI systems. Weapons. Ships. Everything required to rebuild our species from scratch. And they've been working non-stop since the moment Earth died. The hologram leaned forward. Its eyes seemed to stare directly at Velthren. "The timer just ran out," Day-1 said. "Project Lazarus is complete. Right now, at this exact moment, new humans are waking up across the galaxy. Humans who know what you did. Humans who have been trained for one purpose, survival. You thought killing us meant you won. You were wrong. You didn't win. You just gave us a reason to come back stronger." Alarms began blaring across the city. Vrelith military officers received urgent messages on their communication devices. Reports were flooding in from across Confederation space. Unidentified ships appearing near border colonies. Automated defense systems going offline. Communication blackouts spreading like wildfire. "We're back," the hologram said. Its voice was quiet now, almost gentle, but somehow that made it more terrifying. "And we remember everything you did. Every world you burned. Every child you killed. Every human who died screaming for mercy you never gave. We remember all of it." The image began to fade, but before it disappeared completely, Day-1 spoke one final sentence. "You wanted to erase humanity from existence. Instead, you created something worse than you can imagine. You created humans with nothing left to lose. Sleep well, Chancellor. We'll be seeing you soon. The hologram vanished. For a moment, the city was completely silent. Then chaos erupted. People ran in every direction. Ships began launching from spaceports. Military forces mobilized. And High Chancellor Velthrin stood frozen on his stage, staring at the empty air where the hologram had been. Above the planet, Hyuntae allowed himself a small smile. The message had been delivered. The galaxy knew humanity was returning. Now the real work could begin. Send the signal, he said to Kyung-hee. She pressed a button. Across the galaxy and hundreds of hidden locations, Project Lazarus facilities received the final command. Doors opened. Lights activated. And humans began to wake. Ji-won opened her eyes for the first time. White light flooded her vision. She gasped and air rushed into her lungs. It hurt, everything hurt. Her muscles felt wrong, like they belonged to someone else. Her mind was full of memories that weren't hers. Images of places she had never been, faces of people she had never met, except she had met them. She knew their names, knew their stories. The neural imprinting process had worked perfectly. 20 years of education and training downloaded directly into her brain over the course of 3 months. She knew how to fight, how to pilot ships, how to survive in hostile environments. She knew the history of humanity from the first stone tools to the fall of Earth, and she knew why she existed. Subject J2847, vital signs stable, said a mechanical voice. Welcome, Ji-won. Project Lazarus activation is complete. Please proceed to orientation chamber. Ji-won sat up slowly. She was in a medical pod filled with clear fluid that drained away as she moved. The pod opened and she stepped out onto cold metal floor. She was naked and covered in gel. Around her, hundreds of other pods were opening. Humans emerged from each one, men and women of all ages, though none older than 30. They had been grown to peak physical condition. She looked at her hands. They were steady, strong. The genetic improvements worked perfectly. She could feel it in her body. Enhanced reflexes, faster healing, improved resistance to radiation and disease. Humanity version 2.0, born from the ashes of the old world. A screen on the wall activated. It showed a woman's face, the AI tutor that had raised them during the growth process. The voice was warm and calm. Welcome to life, the AI said. I am Mother. I have been your teacher and guardian during your development. You are the first generation of Project Lazarus. You were created for one purpose, to ensure humanity survives. Earth is gone. Most of our species is extinct. But you carry within you everything we were and everything we can become. Ji-won walked toward a clothing station. Other humans did the same, moving on instinct and training. They dressed in simple gray uniforms. Nobody spoke. They were all processing the same information, coming to terms with their existence. This facility is one of 317 across the galaxy. Mother continued. Each facility has produced 1,000 humans. You are not alone. 317,000 of your brothers and sisters are waking up right now. You have weapons, ships, resources, everything you need to reclaim what was taken from us. Ji-won finished dressing and moved to an equipment station. She picked up a rifle. Her hands knew exactly how to hold it, how to check the charge pack, how to aim and fire, muscle memory from training she never actually experienced. It was strange, but it felt right. Your mission is simple, Mother said. Survive, rebuild, and make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. Across the room, a man caught Ji-won's attention. He was taller than most, with scars on his arms that looked like they came from the growth pod. He was checking his equipment with practiced efficiency. His name tag read Dongjun. First time being alive? He asked her. His voice had a hint of humor in it. First time I remember, Ji-won replied. You? Same. Dongjun looked around at the other humans preparing for deployment. Strange, isn't it? Being born with someone else's memories, knowing things you never learned. The neural imprinting worked, said another voice. A woman approached them. Her name tag said Tae-hee. She had short hair and sharp eyes. We have all the knowledge of old humanity, their history, their mistakes, their victories. We won't repeat their errors. We also have their anger, Dongjun said quietly. I remember Earth burning. I remember the screams, but I wasn't there. None of us were. These memories belong to dead people. The memories are ours now, Ji-won said. She felt the truth of it in her bones. We're human. That makes their history our history. Their pain is our pain. And their fight is our fight. Tae-hee nodded. Mother programmed us with something else too. Something the old humans didn't always have. What? Dongjun asked. Unity, Tae-hee said. We don't have old prejudices. Old conflicts. No wars over religion or race or resources. We're all starting from zero. All we have is each other and a mission. Mother's voice interrupted them. All personnel report to Hangar Bay. First wave deployment begins in 1 hour. Commanders Hyun-tae and Kyung-hee are waiting. The humans moved as one. They walked through corridors lined with machinery and storage containers. Everything was clean and new. This facility had been operating on automation for 50 years, preparing for this exact moment. The hangar bay was massive. Dozens of ships sat ready for launch. They were sleek and angular, built with technology that combined old human engineering with new innovations developed by the facility's AI systems. Weapon systems that could punch through Vrelith shields, engines that could outrun their fastest interceptors, stealth technology that made them nearly invisible. Hyun-tae stood on a platform overlooking the hangar. Beside him was Kyung-hee. They were the only old humans here, the only ones born naturally. Ji-won could see the difference immediately. They carried themselves differently, moved with the confidence of people who had lived full lives. Listen up, Hyun-tae called out. His voice carried across the hangar without shouting. I'm Commander Hyun-tae. This is Commander Kyung-hee. We were born before the fall. We're the last survivors of original humanity. We've spent 50 years preparing for this day. Preparing for you, he paused. Let his words sink in. You're probably confused, Hyun-tae continued. You've got memories of a world you never saw. Training you never experienced. It's going to take time to adjust. That's fine. You have time, because we're not rushing into this. The Vrelith spent 50 years thinking they won. They got comfortable, lazy. Now we're going to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. Kyung-hee stepped forward. Your first mission is simple. We're going to Teller 4. The planet where the Vrelith built their monument to our extinction, where they hold their annual festival celebrating our death. We're going to take it back. Not because it's strategically important, but because it sends a message. What message? Someone called out. Hyun-tae smiled. It was not a kind smile. That humanity doesn't stay dead. That we remember, and that we're coming for everything they took from us. Ji-won felt something stir in her chest. Purpose. Her whole life, all 3 months of it, had been leading to this moment. She was created to fight, to survive, to ensure humanity never died again. Board your ships, Kyung-hee ordered. Squadron leaders, you have your assignments. The Vrelith have a garrison on Teller 4, 3,000 soldiers, 20 warships in orbit, automated defense satellites. They think they're safe. We're going to prove them wrong. The humans moved to their ships. Ji-won was assigned to Squadron 7 with Dongjun and Tae-hee. Their ship was a small attack craft designed for hit-and-run operations. Inside, the controls felt familiar. Her hands moved over buttons and switches with practiced ease. All squadrons prepare for launch. Hyun-tae's voice came over the communication system. In 60 seconds, we begin the counteroffensive. We begin taking back what's ours. For Earth, for humanity. For everyone who died thinking we were finished. Ji-won strapped into her seat. Through the cockpit window, she could see stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a dead rock now. A grave marker for billions, but also a reminder, a reason to fight. For Earth, she whispered. Around her, 316,000 humans said the same words in 317 facilities across the galaxy. The countdown reached 0, engines roared to life, and humanity returned to the stars. The Vrelith Confederation was about to learn a hard lesson. You could kill humans. You could burn their worlds. You could try to erase them from history, but you could never ever make them quit. Humans always got back up. They always came back, and this time they came back improved. The sleepers were awake. The ghost of Earth was returning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The attack on Teller 4 came without warning. One moment, the Vrelith garrison was conducting routine patrols. The next, their sensors exploded with alerts. Ships appeared from nowhere. Dozens of them. Small and fast, using stealth technology the Vrelith had never seen before. Commander Raleth was drinking his morning stimulant when the alarm started. He was a career military officer who had served for 30 years without seeing real combat. The war with humanity ended when he was just a child. This posting was supposed to be easy. A symbolic assignment guarding a monument. Report, he shouted, running onto the command deck. Unknown ships attacking the orbital defense platforms, his tactical officer said. The young officer's voice shook. They're destroying our satellites. We've lost contact with platforms 3, 7, and 12. How many ships? At least 40, sir. No, wait. More appearing on sensors. They're using some kind of stealth system. We can't get accurate counts. Raleth felt cold fear grip his chest. He had heard the message from the dead human captain 3 days ago. The whole galaxy had heard it. But his superiors said it was a hoax. A recording left behind by bitter survivors. There couldn't possibly be enough humans left to mount an attack. They were wrong. Get me a communication line to High Command, Raleth ordered, and scramble all fighters. Launch everything we have, but it was already too late. The human ships moved like nothing the Vrelith had ever fought. They dodged incoming fire with impossible precision. Their weapons cut through Vrelith shields like paper. In less than 10 minutes, half the orbital defense network was destroyed. On the planet's surface, G1's squadron came in fast and low. They screamed through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing red from friction. Below them, the monument rose like a metal mountain. Vrelith soldiers were scrambling to defensive positions, but they were disorganized. Panicked. Squadron 7, this is lead, G1 said into her communication system. Split into attack pairs. Hit the military installations first. Avoid civilian areas. We're not here to massacre innocents. Copy that, lead, Dongjun replied from his ship. Targeting the garrison command center. G1 pulled her ship into a steep dive. Her targeting computer locked onto an anti-aircraft battery. She fired. The weapon exploded in a ball of fire. Around her, other ships were doing the same. Precision strikes. Surgical. Taking out military targets while leaving the rest of the city intact. The Vrelith garrison tried to fight back. Their ground forces fired at the attacking ships. Missiles streaked into the sky. But the human ships were too fast, too maneuverable, and their pilots were enhanced. Genetically improved reflexes allowed them to react faster than any normal human could. In orbit, Hyun-tae commanded the space battle from his flagship. He watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The Vrelith warships were powerful but slow. Their tactics were predictable. They had spent 50 years at peace growing soft. Target their communications array, Hyun-tae ordered. Cut them off from high command. Make them feel isolated. Firing, his weapons officer reported. A beam of concentrated energy lanced across space. It struck the Vrelith command ship's main antenna, vaporizing it. Suddenly, the enemy fleet was blind and deaf. They couldn't coordinate, couldn't call for help. They were alone. Broadcast on all frequencies, Hyun-tae said. Let them hear this. He activated his communication system. His voice went out to every Vrelith ship and soldier in the system. Attention Vrelith forces, Hyun-tae said calmly. I am Commander Hyun-tae, also known as the Ghost of Earth. You are surrounded and outmatched. Your orbital defenses are destroyed. Your communication networks are down. You have exactly one chance to survive this. Surrender immediately. On the Vrelith command ship, Raleth stared at his view screen in disbelief. The human commander looked young. Too young. But his eyes were old. Hard. The eyes of someone who had seen too much death. This is Commander Raleth, he responded. We will never surrender to humans. You're monsters. Savages. The galaxy is better off without you. Hyun-tae's expression didn't change. Is that what they taught you? That we were monsters? Let me tell you what monsters do, Commander. Monsters burn entire planets. Monsters kill billions of civilians. Monsters celebrate genocide with festivals and songs. Your people did that, not us. We just refused to bow to your confederation. You refused to follow civilized laws, Raleth shouted back. We refused to give up our freedom, Hyun-tae corrected. There's a difference. But I'm not here to debate history. I'm here to give you a choice. Surrender and you'll be treated as prisoners of war. Fight and you'll die. It's that simple. Raleth looked around his bridge. His crew looked back at him. They were scared. Young officers who had never experienced real combat. They were dying because 50 years ago their leaders decided humans needed to be exterminated. What guarantee do we have? Raleth asked. That you won't kill us anyway? My word, Hyun-tae said. I know that doesn't mean much to you, but here's something that should. We could have destroyed your ships in the first minute of this battle. We could have bombarded your garrison from orbit. We could have killed every Vrelith on Teller 4 before you even knew we were here, but we didn't because we're not you. We don't commit genocide. We fight soldiers, not civilians." There was a long silence. Vrelith made a decision that probably saved his life. "All Vrelith forces," he announced. "Stand down. I repeat, stand down. We surrender." On the planet's surface, Jiwan received the surrender order. She pulled her ship up and circled above the garrison. Below, Vrelith soldiers were dropping their weapons and putting their hands up. The battle was over in less than an hour. "All squadrons cease fire," Jiwan ordered. "Secure the garrison, but do not harm anyone who has surrendered." "We're better than that." Tehi's voice came over the communication channel. "Lead, we've got some Vrelith civilians trying to flee the city." "What are your orders?" "Let them go," Jiwan said without hesitation. "We're not here to terrorize civilians. Our fight is with their military and government." She landed her ship near the monument. The twisted metal structure loomed above her. She stepped out onto the surface of Teller 4 for the first time. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. Around her, other human ships were landing. Soldiers disembarked with weapons ready, but there was no more fighting. Dongjun walked up beside her. He looked at the monument, at all the wreckage from human ships twisted into a grave marker. "They made this from our ships," he said quietly. "From the Indomitable. From all the vessels destroyed at Earth." "I know," Jiwan said. She felt anger building in her chest. "They took our dead and turned them into a trophy. What do we do with it?" Jiwan thought for a moment. "We repurpose it. Turn it into something else. A memorial, but not to our defeat. To our return. So everyone who sees it remembers what happens when you think you've killed humanity." Over the next several hours, human forces secured Teller 4 completely. The Vrelith garrison was disarmed and confined to their barracks. Civilians were assured they wouldn't be harmed if they cooperated. Medical teams treated wounded on both sides without discrimination. Kyung-hee landed her ship in the city center. She walked through streets where 3 days ago, aliens had been dancing and celebrating humanity's extinction. Now those same streets were quiet. Vrelith civilians watched from windows with fear and confusion. She stopped an elderly alien woman who was trying to carry supplies to her home. "Do you need help?" Kyung-hee asked in perfect Vrelith language. The woman stared at her in shock. "You're human. You're supposed to be extinct." "We got better," Kyung-hee said with a slight smile. "Here, let me carry that for you." She took the woman's bags and walked with her to her home. The woman kept looking at her with disbelief. "Why are you helping me?" the woman finally asked. "My people tried to exterminate yours." "Your government tried to exterminate us," Kyung-hee corrected. "You're just a person trying to survive." "That's not a crime." "Besides, if we responded to genocide with genocide, we'd be just as bad as the people who ordered the attack on Earth." The woman started crying. "I didn't know. They told us you were monsters, that the war was necessary, that humanity was a threat to the galaxy." "We were a threat," Kyung-hee admitted. "A threat to your government's control. We wanted independence, freedom, that scared them. So they decided to eliminate us rather than let us exist on our own terms." They reached the woman's home. Kyung-hee set the bags down. "What happens now?" the woman asked. "Now we rebuild," Kyung-hee said. "We take back what was stolen from us. And we make sure the galaxy remembers this lesson. You can't exterminate an idea. You can't kill hope, and you definitely can't kill humanity." In orbit, Hyun-tae watched reports coming in from across the galaxy. Other Lazarus facilities had launched similar operations. Dozens of former human colonies were being reclaimed. Vrelith border outposts were surrendering without fights. The Confederation was in chaos, their fleet scrambling to respond to threats appearing everywhere at once. The counter-offensive had begun, and humanity was winning. Hyun-tae thought about Captain Daewon, dead for 50 years but still fighting through the legacy he left behind. Project Lazarus was his final gift to humanity, his last act of defiance against an enemy that thought killing could solve everything. "They wanted to erase us," Hyun-tae said to himself. Instead, 6 months after the message from Captain Daewon, the Vrelith Confederation was losing the war. Humanity had reclaimed 47 former colonies. Every week brought news of another human victory. Border worlds fell. Defense stations went silent. Supply lines were disrupted. The mighty confederation that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was being torn apart by a species they thought they had exterminated. High Chancellor Velthrin sat in his office on the Confederation capital world. He looked much older than 6 months ago. His blue skin had taken on a gray tinge. His black eyes were sunken and tired. Reports covered his desk. All of them bad news. Another defeat at the Kepler sector, his aide said nervously. The Third Fleet attempted to retake Teller 4. They were ambushed. Only 6 ships escaped. Velthrin put his head in his hands. How is this possible? We outnumber them thousands to 1. Our technology should be superior. How are they winning? They're different from the old humans, the aide explained. Faster, stronger. Their technology has leaped forward. Our intelligence suggests they used artificial intelligence to advance 50 years of research in compressed time. And they're using psychological warfare. They know everything about us. Our tactics, our weaknesses. They studied us while they grew in those facilities. What do they want? Velthrin asked. Do they want to exterminate us in return? The aide hesitated. That's the strange part, Chancellor. They could have killed millions of our civilians. They had opportunities, but they haven't. Every attack targets only military installations. They evacuate civilian areas before bombing. They treat prisoners according to old human war conventions. It's almost like they're trying to prove something. Velthrin stood and walked to his window. Outside, the capital city stretched for miles. Millions of Vrelith living their lives, unaware of how badly the war was going. He had kept the worst news from the public, didn't want panic, but eventually they would learn the truth. They're proving we were wrong, Velthrin said quietly. We said humans were monsters, that they couldn't be civilized, that exterminating them was necessary for galactic peace. Now they're showing mercy we never showed them, making us look like the monsters. Across the galaxy, G1 led her battalion in the liberation of Colony Station 7. It had been a human research outpost before the war. The Vrelith converted it into a military base. Now G1 was taking it back. Remember the rules of engagement, she said to her soldiers over the communication network. Military targets only, no civilians. Anyone who surrenders is to be treated as a prisoner of war. We're not butchers. Her ship docked with the station. Airlocks opened and her soldiers poured through. The Vrelith defenders fought hard at first, but they were outmatched. Human soldiers moved with enhanced speed and coordination. Their weapons were more accurate, their armor more protective. Genetic improvements made them superior in almost every way. But G1 made sure her soldiers never forgot their humanity. When they found wounded Vrelith, they treated them. When civilians were caught in the crossfire, they evacuated them to safety. When enemy soldiers surrendered, they accepted it. One young Vrelith soldier, barely old enough to serve, dropped his weapon and put his hands up. He was shaking with fear. G1 approached him calmly. "What's your name?" she asked in his language. "Tolven," the soldier stammered. "Please don't kill me. I didn't want to fight. They drafted me 3 months ago. I've never even fired my weapon in combat before today." "We're not going to kill you," G1 assured him. "You're a prisoner of war. You'll be treated fairly, given food, medical care, and eventually returned to your people when this is over." "Why?" Tolven asked, confusion replacing some of his fear. "Your species was exterminated. Don't you hate us? Don't you want revenge?" G1 thought about that question. Did she hate them? Yes, part of her did. She carried memories of Earth burning, of billions dying, of children screaming as bombs fell. Those memories weren't originally hers, but neural imprinting made them feel real. The anger was real. "I carry the memories of people who watched your government murder their families," G1 said. "So, yes, there's hate, there's anger, but there's also something stronger than that, hope. The hope that we can be better than the people who tried to destroy us. That we can prove violence isn't the only solution. That maybe, just maybe, different species can coexist without one trying to exterminate the other." She gestured for her soldiers to take Tolven to the detention area. He went quietly, still looking confused but no longer terrified. Dongjun walked up beside G1. "You're getting soft, Commander. Old humanity might have just shot him." "Old humanity lost the war," G1 pointed out. "Maybe that's why. Maybe, All that anger and aggression just made enemies faster than allies. We're trying a different approach. Think it'll work? I don't know, G1 admitted. But it has to be better than genocide. Meanwhile, Tae-hee was working on the intelligence front. She had infiltrated Vrelith communication networks and was downloading decades of classified information. What she found was disturbing. Commander Hyun-tae, you need to see this, she said over encrypted channels. Hyun-tae's face appeared on her screen. What did you find? Evidence, Tae-hee said. Lots of it. Communication records between High Chancellor Velthren and the Confederation Council. They debated the human question for years before deciding on extermination. There were voices arguing for peace, for negotiation, for letting humanity exist independently, but they were overruled. Why? Fear and greed, Tae-hee explained. Human colonies were resource-rich. Our technology was advancing faster than theirs. Our culture valued independence and freedom, which threatened their authoritarian control. So they manufactured a crisis, claimed we were dangerous, built propaganda showing humans as monsters, then used that propaganda to justify genocide. Hyun-tae felt cold fury building in his chest. They knew what they were doing. It wasn't some necessary war. It was calculated murder. There's more, Tae-hee continued. After Earth fell, there were reports of human survivors, evacuation ships that escaped, hidden colonies. The Confederation spent years hunting them down and killing them. They were thorough, obsessive. They didn't want a single human left alive. Send everything to me, Hyun-tae ordered. We'll use this. The galaxy needs to know the truth about who started this war and why. Over the following weeks, humanity began a new offensive, not with weapons, but with information. They broadcast the classified Confederation documents across every communication network. News services received detailed evidence of what really happened. The propaganda, the lies, the calculated decision to commit genocide. Public opinion across Confederation space began to shift. Civilians who had been taught that humans were monsters started questioning their government. Protests erupted on several worlds. Some Vrelith military officers refused orders, saying they wouldn't fight for a government built on lies. The Confederation Council called an emergency session. They needed to respond to the crisis, to stop the bleeding, but they were divided. Some wanted to escalate the war. Others wanted negotiation. The unity that had held the Confederation together for centuries was cracking. High Chancellor Velthren knew he was running out of options. He sent a secret message to Hyun-tae, requesting a meeting. No weapons, no tricks. Just two leaders trying to find a way to end the bloodshed. Hyun-tae almost refused. Part of him wanted to see the Confederation burn for what they did, but he remembered something Captain Daewon had said in his final message. We remember everything you did. But he also said humanity didn't die when you destroyed their bodies. It died when you extinguished their ideas. The idea Hyun-tae carried was simple. Humanity deserved to exist, to be free, to live without fear of extermination. And that idea was stronger than any weapon. I'll meet with him, Hyun-tae told Kyung-hee. On neutral ground, under ceasefire conditions. Are you sure? Kyung-hee asked. It could be a trap. Maybe, Hyun-tae acknowledged. But if there's even a small chance to end this war without more death, I have to try. That's what makes us different from them. We choose mercy when we can. We choose peace when it's possible. And we only choose violence when there's no other option left. The meeting was arranged for a neutral space station on the border of Confederation space. Security was tight on both sides. Hyun-tae arrived with Kyung-hee and a small security detail. Velthren came with his own guards. The two leaders sat across from each other in a conference room. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just studied each other. The human who had survived when his species was exterminated. The alien who had ordered that extermination. I don't expect forgiveness, Velthren finally said. What my government did was unforgivable. I helped make that decision. I carry that weight. Why did you do it? Hyun-tae asked. We offered to leave Confederation space to exist independently. Why wasn't that enough? Velthrin looked old and tired. Because we were afraid. Your species was growing too fast, too powerful. Your ideas about freedom and independence were spreading to other species. We saw you as a threat to stability, to our way of life. So we decided to eliminate the threat before it got worse. You were afraid of ideas, Hyuntae said. So you committed genocide. Yes, Velthrin admitted. Anti-negotiations took 4 months. 4 months of intense discussions, arguments, compromises, and difficult truths. The Vrelith Confederation Council was divided. Some members wanted to fight to the last. Others recognized the war was lost and wanted peace at any price. The moderate voices, those who had opposed the genocide from the beginning, finally found the courage to speak up. Humanity established a provisional government. They called it the Reformed Human Assembly. Representatives from all the Lazarus facilities came together to decide their future. It was the first democratic human government in 50 years. They elected Sumin as their speaker. Sumin was a Lazarus-born human with a gift for diplomacy. She had been designed with enhanced cognitive abilities, focused on negotiation and conflict resolution. But more than her genetics, she believed deeply in the possibility of peace. She carried the memories of old humanity's wars, their mistakes, their failures, and she was determined not to repeat them. We stand at a crossroads, Sumin said to the assembly. We can choose revenge. We have the power now. We could do to them what they did to us. Burn their worlds, kill their civilians, make them extinct. And part of me wants that. Part of me wants to make them feel the pain we felt. She paused. The assembly chamber was silent. Every human representative listened carefully. They were all Lazarus-born except for the handful of survivors like Hyuntae and Kyung-hee. They all carried the same anger, the same memories of Earth burning. But revenge isn't justice, Sumin continued. Revenge is just more violence, more death, more children growing up without parents, more worlds turned to ash. If we become genocidal monsters to defeat genocidal monsters, then Captain Daewon and the billions who died at Earth died for nothing. They believed in something better, freedom, justice, the right to exist. We honor them by being better than our enemies, not by becoming them. The assembly debated for days. Some argued for harsher terms, complete Confederation surrender, occupation of their worlds, execution of everyone involved in the genocide. Others argued for forgiveness, for moving forward without punishment. In the end, they reached a compromise, justice but not vengeance, accountability but not extermination. The peace conference was held on a neutral world, a beautiful planet with purple skies and silver oceans. The Vrelith Confederation sent their full council. Humanity sent Sumin, Hyuntae, Kyung-hee, and representatives from each Lazarus facility. Dozens of other species sent observers curious to see how this conflict would end. High Chancellor Velthrin looked diminished in person. He had resigned his position and now stood as a representative, not a leader. The new Confederation leadership was composed of moderates who had opposed the genocide, but lacked the power to stop it. The Reformed Human Assembly has prepared terms for peace, Sumin announced. These terms are not negotiable. You will accept them, or we will continue the war until you have no choice. She activated a holographic display. The terms appeared in multiple languages. First, the Vrelith Confederation must formally acknowledge that the war against humanity was an act of genocide. Not a defensive war, not a necessary action. Genocide. This acknowledgement will be taught in all Confederation schools. The truth must be remembered. Several Confederation Council members shifted uncomfortably. Admitting genocide meant accepting historical guilt. But they nodded. They had no choice. Second, all individuals who planned, ordered, or enthusiastically participated in the genocide will face trial. We're not demanding executions, but there must be justice. Prison sentences. Public accountability. The galaxy must see that genocide has consequences. Velthrin stood. I accept responsibility for my role. I will submit to trial and accept whatever sentence is deemed appropriate. Third, the Confederation will pay reparations. Not in money, but in resources, technology, and territory. All former human colony worlds will be returned to human control. The Confederation will provide materials to help rebuild. and you will share all your advanced technology with us freely. The new Confederation leader, a younger Vrelith named Kelith, spoke up. The reparations are acceptable. We cannot undo what was done, but we can help rebuild. Fourth, Sumin continued. The Vrelith Confederation will be dissolved. In its place, we will establish the reformed Galactic Assembly, a democratic organization where all species have equal representation. No more authoritarian councils. No more one species dominating others. True equality. This caused more discussion. Some Confederation members protested. They didn't want to give up their power structure. But the moderate voices prevailed. They knew the old system had led to genocide. It needed to change. Fifth, and finally, humanity will establish monitoring stations throughout former Confederation space. These stations will have the authority to investigate any suspected genocide or species-targeted persecution. If we see any species being treated the way we were, we will intervene. This is not negotiable. Kelith stood and approached Sumin. These terms are harsh but fair. We accept them. On behalf of the Vrelith people and the other species of the former Confederation, we agree to peace. But before the agreement could be finalized, a disturbance erupted. A group of hardline Confederation military officers stormed into the conference chamber. They were armed. Their leader, a general named Tornak, pointed a weapon at Sumin. We reject these terms, Tornak shouted. The Confederation does not surrender. Humanity must be destroyed. Everything happened in seconds. Human security moved to protect Sumin. Vrelith moderate forces drew their own weapons. The chamber erupted into chaos. But before anyone could fire, Hyuntai stepped between Tornak and Sumin. Go ahead, Hyuntai said calmly. Shoot me, kill me, and restart the war. But understand this. We have 317,000 soldiers, advanced weapons, ships you can't match. If this peace fails, we will not stop until every military installation in former Confederation space is destroyed. We will win. The only question is how many more people die first. Tornak's hand shook. He looked around the room, at his fellow officers, at the Vrelith moderates who had weapons pointed at him, at the human soldiers who looked ready to fight. And he saw something in their eyes. Not fear, not anger, just determination. Cold, absolute determination. You're bluffing, Tornak said, but his voice lacked confidence. Try me, Hyuntai replied. Please give me a reason to reject peace. Give me an excuse to finish what we started. I'm one of the last old humans. I remember Earth before it burned. I remember everything your government took from us. Part of me wants you to pull that trigger, so I can stop pretending to be civilized and just let humanity do what it does best. Win. For a long moment, nobody moved. The entire galaxy held its breath. The peace conference teetered on the edge of collapse. One shot would restart the war. One moment of violence would doom millions more to death. Then Velthrin did something unexpected. He walked forward, placing himself between Tornak's weapon and Hyuntai. Lower your weapon, General, Velthrin said quietly. This war was my mistake, my crime. I will not let you compound it. The humans have won. They have earned peace, and we will give it to them. You're a traitor, Tornak spat. No, Velthrin said sadly. I'm a war criminal trying to prevent more crimes. There's a difference, he looked at his fellow Vrelith. We lost this war the moment we decided genocide was acceptable. Not because humanity fought back, but because we abandoned our principles, our values. We became monsters and now we must face what we've become. Tornak lowered his weapon. He and his officers were immediately arrested by Vrelith security forces. The moment passed. Crisis averted. The peace conference continued. That night, Hyuntai found Jiwon standing on a balcony overlooking the Silver Ocean. She was quiet, contemplative. You did well today, he said. I was ready to fight, Jiwon admitted. When those officers stormed in, part of me hoped they would start shooting. So we could end this with violence instead of words. Is that wrong? It's human, Hyuntai said. We're a species that survived by being willing to fight. That's in our DNA now, enhanced and refined. But we're also a species that survived by being smart, by adapting, by knowing when to fight and when to build. Daewon knew that. It's why he created Project Lazarus instead of just weapons. Do you think this peace will last? Jiwon asked. Hyuntae looked up at the purple sky. 2 moons hung overhead. I don't know. Maybe. But even if it doesn't, we've proven something important. That humanity can show mercy. That we can win without becoming monsters. That we're more than just survivors. We're builders. Dreamers. We believe in something better. The peace agreement was signed the next day. The Vrelith Confederation formally surrendered. Trials were scheduled for war criminals. Reparations were arranged. The reformed Galactic Assembly was established with representatives from 43 species, including humanity. The monument on Teller 4 was transformed. The twisted wreckage was kept, but a new structure was built around it. A museum dedicated to all victims of genocide, not just humans but any species that had suffered attempted extermination. It became a place of remembrance and education, a warning to future generations. High Chancellor Velthrin stood trial 3 months later. The evidence against him was overwhelming. He had ordered the attack on Earth, had overseen the extermination 5 years after the peace agreement. The galaxy looked different. The reformed Galactic Assembly met quarterly on a rotating schedule, each session held on a different member world. Democracy was messy and slow compared to the old Confederation's authoritarian efficiency, but it worked. Species that had once been enemies now sat together, debating trade agreements and environmental policies instead of planning wars. Earth was slowly coming back to life. Terraforming crews worked around the clock, rebuilding the atmosphere, cleaning the oceans, restoring the soil. It would take decades, maybe centuries, before Earth looked like it did before the bombing, but progress was being made. Green was returning to the dead world. Hyuntae stood in what used to be Seoul. The city was gone, reduced to radioactive rubble 50 years ago. But terraforming had cleaned the worst of the radiation. Now construction crews were building something new, not a replica of the old city but something different, a memorial city, a place that honored the past while looking toward the future. The first trees are ready for planting, Kyung-hee said, walking up beside him. She carried a small sapling in her hands. It was grown from seeds that had been preserved in the Lazarus facilities, a direct descendant of trees that once grew in Korea. Hyuntae took the sapling gently. Together they walked to a designated spot, the site where the UNSC Indomitable had broadcast its final message before exploding. The exact coordinates had been calculated from old military records. This was where Captain Daewon had made his last stand. They dug a hole in the freshly treated soil. Hyuntae placed the sapling carefully and covered the roots. It was a small thing, just one tree, but it was also enormous. The first new life planted on Earth in 50 years, a symbol of humanity's return. Do you think he'd be proud? Hyuntae asked quietly. Daewon, if he could see what we built. Kyung-hee considered the question. I think he'd be surprised. Project Lazarus was designed for survival, not peace. He expected us to come back angry, to take revenge. Instead, we chose justice. That takes more courage than revenge? We almost chose revenge, Hyuntae admitted. Every day during the negotiations, I wanted to reject peace, to keep fighting until the Confederation was destroyed completely. The anger was there, still is sometimes, but you didn't give in to it. None of us did. That's what makes us human, not the anger or the violence. The choice. We always have a choice, even when everything inside us screams for blood. Across the galaxy, Jiwon was serving as the first human ambassador to the Vrelith homeworld. It was a difficult assignment. Many Vrelith still distrusted humans, and many humans questioned why she would even want to work with the species that had tried to exterminate them. But Jiwon understood something important. Peace required more than just stopping the fighting. It required building relationships, understanding, finding common ground between former enemies. She stood in a Vrelith classroom, speaking to young students about human history. The children listened with wide eyes as she described Earth before the war. The cultures, the diversity, the beauty that had been destroyed. Why did our parents hate you so much? One young Vrelith asked. The question was innocent but painful. They were afraid, Jiwon explained. Your leaders told them we were dangerous, that we couldn't be trusted, that the only way to be safe was to make us disappear. And people believed it because fear is easier than understanding. Fear lets you avoid difficult questions. Understanding requires work. Do you hate us? Another child asked. Jiwon thought carefully about her answer. Sometimes, when I remember what happened to Earth, when I think about all the humans who died, but I also remember that you weren't born yet when it happened. You're not responsible for your parents' mistakes. You only become responsible if you choose to repeat those mistakes. She knelt down to the children's eye level. My job is to make sure you grow up knowing the truth. knowing what genocide looks like, knowing the cost of fear and prejudice, so that when you're adults you'll choose differently. You'll choose understanding over fear, peace over war. The teacher, an elderly Vrelith woman who had lived through the war, approached Jiwan after class. "Thank you for coming. Many humans wouldn't. Many Vrelith wouldn't want you here. But the children need to learn. Both our species need to learn. We're all learning," Jiwan agreed. "How to live together. How to trust again. It's hard work. But the alternative is more death. More suffering. I'd rather do hard work than bury more bodies." Meanwhile, Tehi was working on something unprecedented, a joint archive project between humans and Vrelith. They were collecting records from both sides of the war. Military reports, personal diaries, photographs, videos, everything. The archive would be public, accessible to anyone who wanted to understand what really happened. "This is important," Tehi explained to her team, which included both humans and Vrelith researchers. "We can't move forward if we hide from the past. Both our species made mistakes, committed atrocities, made choices we regret. The archive ensures future generations can learn from those mistakes." A young Vrelith researcher named Vental was digitizing old Confederation military records. He stopped at one document and read it quietly. His skin turned pale. "This is from my grandfather," Vental said softly. "He was a fleet commander. He led the bombardment of a human colony world. According to this report, there were evacuation shuttles, civilian transports trying to escape. He ordered them destroyed, killed thousands of non-combatants." Tehi walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry you had to see that. But this is why the archive matters. We can't pretend these things didn't happen. Your grandfather made terrible choices, but you're choosing differently. You're helping ensure the truth is preserved. That's how we heal. Not by forgetting, but by remembering and choosing better." The Reformed Galactic Assembly held a special ceremony at the memorial on Teller 4. Representatives from every member species attended. It was the 5th anniversary of peace. Time to reflect on how far they had come and how far they still needed to go. Suman gave the keynote address. She stood before the transformed monument, addressing billions watching across the galaxy via broadcast. "5 years ago we stood at the edge of extinction," Suman said. "Both our species in different ways. Humanity faced literal extinction. The Vrelith faced moral extinction. Both were dying. Both needed to change to survive." She gestured to the memorial behind her. "This place was built as a celebration of genocide. Aliens danced on our graves and thought they'd won. But that cold laughter that interrupted their celebration wasn't just a recording from Captain Day One. It was humanity itself, laughing at the idea that we could be erased, that our ideas could be destroyed, that our spirit could be broken." The crowd was silent. Even after 5 years, the memory of that moment still sent chills through everyone who had been alive to hear it. "We came back from extinction," Suman continued, "not to repeat the cycle of violence, but to break it. We proved that mercy is not weakness, that justice is more powerful than vengeance. That peace, real lasting peace, requires courage greater than any military victory." She paused and looked directly at the camera, speaking to the entire galaxy. 50 years ago, the Confederation danced on our graves and thought they'd ended mankind. They forgot something important about humans. We don't stay down. We get back up, dust ourselves off, and we keep fighting. Not for revenge, not for dominance, but for the chance to prove that even in our darkest hour we can choose to be better. That's what makes us human. That's what you could never kill. That's why we're still here." The speech was broadcast everywhere. Humans watching from their rebuilt colonies, Vrelith watching from their homes, many with tears in their eyes. Other species across the galaxy, learning this history for the first time. That evening, Hyun-tae returned to Earth one more time. He stood at the memorial forest they had started building. 5 years of work had created a small green space in the ruins of Seoul. Thousands of trees now grew where buildings once stood. It wasn't much compared to the vast forest that had covered Earth before the war, but it was a start. He walked through the trees until he found the first one. The sapling he and Kyung-hee had planted on the anniversary of the peace agreement. It had grown well, already taller than him, strong roots digging deep into Earth's healing soil. A young girl approached him. She was maybe 7 years old, Lazarus born, raised on Earth during the terraforming process. She was part of the new generation that would grow up on humanity's homeworld. Children who would never know the fear of extinction, never know the rage of genocide. They would inherit a galaxy learning to choose peace. "Are you Commander Hyuntae?" the girl asked. "The ghost of Earth?" Hyuntae smiled. He didn't like that nickname, but it had stuck. "Yes, that's me. My teacher said you were on the last evacuation shuttle from Earth, that you survived when almost everyone else died." "That's true." "Why did you survive?" "What made you special?" Hyuntae knelt down to the girl's level. It was the same question he had asked himself countless times over 50 years. Why him? Why did he live when billions died? "I wasn't special," he said. "I was just lucky. Right place at the right time. But surviving gave me a responsibility.